There was some sort of technical breakdown on the red Metro line number 1, and in the ensuing public transport chaos, I ended up arriving 70 minutes late for my dinner reservation at Ristorante Immorale. They had graciously held my table. Despite the late start, I decided to go for the 8-course tasting menu. It contained too many things I didn't want to miss out on. Some excellent bread made from ancient grains and natural yeasts arrived within seconds to go with a crémant from the Jura, a cuvée of Chardonnay and Savagnin. When the waiter told me they only served so-called natural wines, my heart sank, based on my previous experiences where at best 50% are enjoyable. This naturally sparkling wine was, however, on the right side of that 50%. The first plate was a carpaccio of thinly sliced cucumber, rolled up to contain a mousse of robiola di Roccaverano, a creamy goat cheese, and wild greens. A light and refreshing start to the meal. What was up next was one of the items I'd found most intriguing on the menu. Snow peas with grilled apricots and grilled hearts of lettuce, drizzled with a beet-infused spicy mayonnaise. This was a great demonstration of an imaginative and perfectly executed vegetable starter. Octave, a wine from Samos made from indigenous Muscat grapes, followed to go with the next 2 dishes. It was unusual and thus interesting, but I wouldn't exactly describe it as love at first or second sip. Taste 3 came on a rectangular plate covered in sunflower seeds, which the waitress said were in theory edible. I tasted a few. They were. The menu described it as a bread cushion, filled with a pâté of quaratella and livers with a pea cream. I had to ask what quaratella was. The waitress said the term applied to lamb's heart, lung, and livers. The other innards were chicken livers. I was instructed to eat this course with my hands. Eating carefully, I managed to keep the pea cream drips onto the sunflower seeds to a minimum. Late summer is porcini time, so I was delighted with the next plate. A variety of tomatoes with slices of raw, perfect porcini, along with figs. A surprising combination which worked fantastically. Garlic and wild mint provided aromatic accents. The first of 2 meat dishes was grilled pigeon with grilled figs. A dark red sauce of cherry and habanero sat at the top of the plate. All of these added up to a most felicitous mix of flavors. This marked the first time in my life I happened to have pigeon 2 nights in a row. The strip of raw meat south of the cherry habanero sauce on the plate was pigeon breast, which the waitress assured me could indeed be eaten raw. Duck and pigeon, yes. Turkey or chicken, no. Along with this dish came the first of 2 red wines, Le Robbe, from the Passo Fonduto winery west of Caltanissetta in Sicily, made from 80% Nero d'Avola and 20% white grapes, whose bottle label I forgot to photograph. A very pleasant discovery, and I think it may have been the first time I was drinking a mixture of Nero d'Avola with white grapes. The later red will receive no further mention here, as it was extremely unpleasant, thanks mostly to a distinctly chemical aftertaste which was almost unerasable, and it was simply undrinkable. The second meat dish was one of the most arresting combinations of surf and turf, as it were, I can recall having eaten. Crisp veal sweetbreads with grilled eel in a licorice sauce with fresh horseradish. Eel isn't something I get a lot of in Vienna, and I'm also not used to sweetbreads having such a crisp surface. Both the texture and flavor contrasts were memorable, highlighted even more by the sweetness of the licorice sauce and the sharp horseradish sprinklings. Unfortunately, I was distracted by the second red wine's arrival and completely forgot to film this, the most outstanding dish on an excellent menu, for more than 2 seconds and took no photos at all. We had come to the last savory course, which had its own very special accompaniment. A generous spoonful of caviar, which the waitress served in the classic fashion, on the back of my hand between thumb and forefinger. This sumptuous mouthful preceded the rest of the actual seventh dish itself, which sounds and looks less interesting than it tasted. It was a grilled red pepper along with a peach mostarda, not really visible here, in a pool of ultra-reduced fondo bruno beef stock. Yet another strong showing of the chef's ability to come up with very original creations featuring vegetables. A bottle of La Majandilla from La Père in Jurançon, situated in southwestern France, announced the imminent arrival of dessert. The wine's name comes from the Occitan word for meilleur, mage, meaning the best grape selections from a very late harvest. The variety used here is 100% Petit Mansin, and please forgive my inadequate Occitan pronunciation. Always happy to encounter a new grape variety, and the Majandilla was a very likable and well-matched accompaniment to the dessert itself. A porcini gelato, almost invisible under a lavish blanket of black summer truffle, was the main feature. On a plate off to the side were three smaller sweets: a baba al rum, a so-called chocolate bubble, and a salted coffee-flavored biscuit. They may not be as photogenic as the gelato, but they were equally outstanding. The baba was made with rum agricolo, produced from freshly pressed sugarcane juice, rather than molasses, which gave it a much more distinctive flavor. Full and very contented after a remarkable dinner, I walked over to the Porta Venezia metro stop, where the Metro Line 1 was of course long since up and running again, for the ride back to my hotel.